So we were discussing in the last class on this power generated in the synchronous generators, and we looked at the analytical equation for this, and we looked at the equivalent circuit also, the magnetization curve equivalent circuit, and then we discussed about the power flow in the synchronous generator. So coming from the input mechanical power, what all steps are there and how it gets converted. So finally we get the electrical power output. Now this was the expressions for the output quantities which are there, and this another expression we discussed last time is the converted power, and also because we are making this assumption of ignoring the armature resistance, which is small compared to synchronous reactance, so we can say that this is also the output power. And also based on that, we looked at this delta, which is the internal angle, and which controls the operation of the machine in one sense in terms of the power output, and we discussed that how there is usually a very large stability margin, safety margin, which is kept for the operation of the machine, and delta is restricted to somewhere in a range of 20 to 30 degrees, so that your full load rated power output is actually half or less than half of the instantaneous maximum power which the machine can deliver. And the advantage of this capability is used by managing the reserve for the machine. It can be, this particular feature provides an operating reserve. So today we will look at few more things. One is the synchronous generator ratings. So rating, I think everyone knows across different. I think we know that any particular device or system which is there has got a rating in which it can operate. So same way, there are different quantities related to the synchronous generator, and there are limits on these different parameters for safe operation of the generator. And these limits, which are expressed as ratings, are generally put as a nameplate on the machine, and it's also known as the nameplate rating. So we will look at few of these, and the typical ratings on the nameplate are these: the voltage, frequency, speed, apparent power in kilovolt amperes, the rated power factor, field current, and service factor. So we'll look at these. Before we go ahead, this is just one sample of a nameplate rating of a synchronous generator. So this left portion is not really visible very much, a little less clear, but I hope you can still make it out. So the rated power of this machine, power generated, is 67.3 kVA, MVA actually, 67,000 kVA. So 67.3 MVA. Voltage output is 13,800 volts, that is 13.8 kV. The rated armature current is 2.8 kiloamperes, 2,820 amperes. The power factor, rated power factor in percentage, is 95%. It's a three-phase machine, and 60 cycles, that means 60 hertz. It is designed for 60 hertz operation. So, and that is obvious also, you can see it is made in USA. So as we know, USA has the standard of 60 hertz. So this is 60 hertz machine. RPM is 100. So can anyone quickly tell me what is the number of poles of this machine?
Seventy-two.
72? Is that
72.
correct? So you have frequency equal to synchronous speed in RPM multiplied by poles, number of poles divided by 120. So if you transpose, it goes 120 into 60 900. Okay, yeah, that's correct. So this is a 72 pole machine, pretty large number of poles. And so what might be the application where this machine is used? Based on this, what can you say?
For small, you can say small power generation.
Small power generation.
Small.
By the way, the
Uh,
rating of the machine is
means speed.
67 MVA, not
Sir,
very,
Yeah,
very
means
small.
SHP it can be used for.
Sir, for hydro generation.
Correct. Who told that answer?
Prashant sir. Prashant.
Prashant. Yeah, thank you, Prashant. So yeah, this is correct. So it is used for hydro generation that we can make out from because the RPMs are very low and number of poles is very high. And but not really small hydro because if you see the rating is around the 67,000 kVA, so it won't be for small hydro for sure. So it will be probably in one of the large hydropower plants having reservoir and dam based scheme. Then the field winding details are also given. The exciting amperes 735 amperes and excitation volts 375 volt DC. So if you multiply these two together, you get the how much is the power which is being consumed by the DC supply. So how much is this number? 735 into 375.
Sir, 275.625 kilowatt.
Okay, so on 21 and yeah, so it comes out around how much? 275 kilowatt.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Kilowatt. 275 kilowatt, and this is the rated power output is 67,368 kVA. So if you look at it, if you express this thing as a percentage of this, how much would it be? Less than 1%, right?
Sir, 0.24%.
Right, so that's very low as you can see. So this also corroborates the point which we discussed earlier, that this DC supply is just the exciting supply, it provides the excitation supply, it sets up the magnetic field. So this power which is being consumed by the DC supply, even if you take the power factor which is 95%, just a minute, let me complete the sentence. So this, even if you multiply these two together and you take it as a percentage of this thing, it's hardly less than 0.3% or something. So that is there. Yeah. Yeah. Whose question was that?
Sir, Pranit.
Yes, Pranit.
Sir, that exciting ampere, that's in ampere, no?
Yeah.
Sir, then 735 into 375 is 275.62 kilowatt.
Kilowatt, right? Very correct.
Then here in left side it is 67,368 kilo. So which one we have to divide?
No, I'm saying, see, these two are very different. This is the DC supply. So the field winding, you're providing this much DC power input. This is the power which you are generating. So I mean, there is nothing to divide as such. I'm just telling you for comparison that this machine is generating 67,000 kVA, but it is for the DC supply. The consumption is only this much, 275 kVA, kilowatts. So that way, I'm just telling you because there was one question. I mean, in the beginning, I mean, when we were discussing the theory of the synchronous generator, someone was asking was about that how much is like this power is getting converted to this, or what is the relationship between this power and this one. So I just wanted to corroborate that fact that actually the power generated here is coming from the mechanical, the prime mover, right? The mechanical power input, and this is just an excitation supply. So with the numbers, we were just checking it out that this is hardly 0.25% of the rated power.
Okay.
And then the rated temperature rise is 60 degrees Celsius. We will look at this also today. The temperature rise is also a limiting factor in AC machines, in general in electrical machines, and in our case for the synchronous generator. So these are some of the ratings, as you can see. So some of the prominent things: the power output, voltage, current output, rated power factor, number of phases, frequency, RPM, and also the DC voltage and current required. Those are listed, and also something related to the temperature rise is also there. There is one more factor which can be put there here, as it says here, service factor, which is not here, but it can be there. So we will look at that also, what is it. So now let's look at the conceptual understanding behind this. So most of this, many of these things we have discussed earlier, but still from the rating point of view, we are looking at it once again. So we are looking at basically what determines these ratings, what are the driving factors behind these ratings. That is what we will discuss now. So the rated frequency of the synchronous generator, first of all, it starts with frequency, because that is sort of, that is independent of the machine. It is not dependent on the machine in any way. So rated frequency of the synchronous generator simply depends on the power system to which it is connected. So you cannot really change this thing. This is a constant depending upon where you are applying this machine. So as it says, commonly used power system frequencies today are 50 Hertz in Europe and Asia and 60 Hertz in the Americas. On where you are going to use this machine, this is a given. This is a constant which cannot be changed. Then once that frequency is fixed, then there is only one possible rotational speed for a given number of poles, as we know, because the number of poles is also fixed. The machine is already constructed. It is already, once it has been manufactured and constructed, then the number of poles is also fixed. And now that the frequency is fixed, so the rotational speed also gets fixed that way. So there is only one possible rotational speed for this synchronous generator. Next comes the voltage. So as we discussed, you might recall last class and previous class to that, we discussed about the generated voltage, and generated voltage, as we discussed, was given as K into phi omega. So there is flux, and there is the speed of rotation and the mechanical construction of the machine. So mechanical construction is fixed once the machine is already constructed. Speed of rotation, as we discussed just above, because frequency is fixed and number of poles is fixed, so speed of rotation is also fixed. So the generated voltage basically depends on the flux. And for a given mechanical frame size and speed, the higher the desired voltage, the higher the machine's required flux. So that's also obvious. The greater you need the voltage generated, the more will be the flux requirement. But the constraint is also there. The flux cannot be increased forever. As we discussed last time, you recall the magnetization curve, the flux goes on increasing linearly with the field current, but cannot go on indefinitely. There is some saturation which will occur, and then gradually it will saturate in some particular period. So there is always a maximum allowable field current which will be there. So that is also given here as the field current rating. As you can see, the field current is also given in rated terms. So then another consideration in setting the maximum allowable voltage is the breakdown value of the winding insulation. Normal operating voltages must not approach breakdown too closely. So this is actually the limiting factor. We will look at it today, that this actually becomes a real constraint, that because the generating equipment which you are having, this as here, like for example, you can see this, the rated terminal voltage is 13,800 volts. But when you need to transfer it over long distances, when you are generating this much bulk power, 67 MVA, and you need to transfer it over long distances, then this voltage is not really sufficient. The transmission voltage has to be much higher, okay, for large power transfer over long distances. Any idea how much is the transmission voltage? Yes, anyone?
Sir,
Yeah.
220 kV, 440 kV, and extra
Right.
high voltage is 765 kV.
Right. So usually 220 kV, 400 kV, or 765 kV. These three are the high voltage transmission voltages for bulk power transfer over long distances. But as you can see, this is only 13.8 kV. So ideally, we would have desired this to be much higher, because as we just now said, that the transmission voltage is much higher, 220 kV and above. But still, this is only 13.8 kV. So the main limitation here, why we can't increase the voltage beyond a desirable, beyond a considerable limit, is mainly the constraint comes from the winding insulation. So if you have a very high voltage, then the winding insulation might break down. That's why we generate usually either at 11 kV or this 13.8 kV is more common in US. In India, it is either 11 kV or 22 kV. So once you generated this voltage, then you will use a transformer for stepping up the voltage from your given voltage level of 11 or 22 kV to 220 or 400 or 765 kV. So that is there. Now, okay, so let me ask you a question now. Is it possible to operate a generator for one frequency? Operate a generator which has been rated for one frequency. Can we operate it at a different frequency? For example, let's talk about this one. Is it possible to operate a 60 Hertz generator at 50 Hertz? What do you say?
No, sir.
Okay, and you have to always give a reason, yes or no with a reason.
Because, sir, it will be out of synchronism, because mechanical governor system will be not handle that frequency variation. Some
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
So by looking at the formula, it seems that it can be done.
Okay. And what needs to be, again, you have to also give the reasoning behind that. Why?
Because poles are fixed, and if we adjust the speed to such a value that we can change the frequency.
Okay, now frequency is determined by the grid in which you are connecting. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, you can change the speed, but I'm saying about the is there something else which might need to be adjusted here, or you can just bring a 60 Hertz generator and connect it to a 50 Hertz grid and operate. What else might be needed to be adjusted? One is the speed of rotation. That's clear. That's obvious actually. Because if you want to run it at 50 Hertz, so the synchronous speed has to be different. That is okay. What else? Anyone?
Sir, is the question that we can operate 60 Hertz generator in 50 Hertz system?
Correct.
We can use HVDC for that.
No, don't scare people with these terms. That is a transmission technology, right? We are not going
Yes,
into transmission
sir.
system, right? We are just talking about the generator. Yeah.
Okay.
So we are not talking about the transmission. I'm just saying that you have a system, a grid which is having a 50 Hertz operating frequency. And now let's say you got a generator which has been manufactured or designed for basically 60 Hertz operation. So now looking at, for your hint, I will just, as a hint, you can have a look at this thing. Just have a look at this ratings again. And what else do you think needs to be adjusted? Okay, I'm giving you half of the answer. It can be done. There is no issue. It's not that it cannot be done. It can be done.
Sir,
we can use
number of
power
poles.
electronics device, that cycloconverter, so that
One by one. Okay, Prashanta, yes.
we can use cycloconverter. That means we can adjust the frequency for the output.
Okay,
Power
interesting
electronics
answers
device.
coming up. Okay, Prashanta, ठीक. Pramod, what
Sir,
else?
shall I?
Pramod wanted to say something. I think he was also saying.
Sir, I think there is we can change the number of poles if we have to change the frequency.
नहीं, नंबर ऑफ पोल्स तो फिक्स हो गया ना. अब उसको जनरेटर को खोल के फिर से उसका वाइंडिंग चेंज करोगे, क्या चेंज करोगे, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. इट इज
Yes.
कंस्ट्रक्टेड.
Okay.
Yes, Savik.
Sir, number of poles are fixed. We cannot do anything with that. If we change the excitation current, it is directly proportional to speed. That is excitation. We can change the speed to some extent.
Speed is also constant. It's a synchronous generator.
No, sir. By changing the excitation, if we want to operate at 50 Hertz, by changing the speed, we can operate that, I guess. That will also run in synchronism, but
Correct. Half is correct, but you are, first part of the statement is correct, but second part you are relating to something else.
Yes.
So excitation so far is correct. Yeah, by changing excitation, something can be done. But what will happen by changing excitation? That part you are not saying correctly. By changing excitation, the speed won't change. Speed is different. Speed is determined by the prime mover speed. Right? But your first half is correct. Actually, that is the answer. You know what will happen here? See, if you look at it, there are two things. One part Nitish had pointed out initially, that was the first part, initial part, is that okay, if you want to operate it in a 50 hertz grid now, so one thing is that its RPM will have to be modified. Okay, so let's say we take this same example, it is rated at 60 hertz. Now I bring this machine from USA to India, let's say, and I want to run it in the Indian power system in a particular power plant. So what I know here is that it has got 72 poles and 50 frequency is 50 hertz. So what will be the RPM now? 50 into 120 divided by this thing, 72. How much is that?
Sir, 83.33 RPM.
Okay. So RPM will have to be adjusted. That is one thing. And because you adjust the RPM, now what happens is that your effective generating frequency itself changes because number of poles is fixed. You change the RPM, and now you are generating at 50 hertz. And now what else will occur here? Another thing, it is just a direct consequence of this. Because now what happened is that you change the RPM of the machine. So this RPM is an input to some other parameter here. If you recall, we just now discussed that. This RPM is influencing the frequency and also influencing the what else?
The main magnetic field.
Okay. Now, see again, please keep it separated. See, one is the mechanical power input which is coming through the prime mover. So your RPMs is determined by what is the at which RPM you are connecting at which RPM you are running your prime mover, and both of these are determined based on the frequency at which you want to operate. So this is one line. Okay, based on frequency you decide what is the RPM and accordingly you run your prime mover at that particular RPM. That is one line. Apart from that, now what else is there? Now once your frequency is fixed and you change your RPM, so something else gets changed in the system. Not the excitation. Many people are pointing towards this. This is not, I mean, until unless you change it manually, it will not change. Or I mean, manually or automatically. Basically, if you change it, if you make an intervention, only then it is going to change. But we are not doing that, and we don't need to do that actually. So what else will happen? You change the frequency, you change the RPM to change the frequency. Accordingly, what else will get affected? Something will get affected this side.
Temperature will change.
No, don't go to temperature right now. We'll go to temperature later. Something else we discussed here. What will happen?
Voltage rating, output voltage, excitation voltage will change.
Right. Your output voltage will change because see, it's very clear. Please remember the fundamental concepts what we have discussed before. So yeah, so this was one thing. Now we had this machine which was manufactured in USA for 60 hertz with a given number of poles. Now we are saying that we brought this machine in India and I want to operate it at 50 hertz. So only thing, I mean, frequency can easily be manipulated just with changing the synchronous speed. So we don't need cycloconverter or any advanced device. What we need to take care of here is that this is 50, so 50 into 120 divided by whatever is the number of poles, so you get the speed. So basically your speed actually has to be brought down. Okay, so and someone has pointed out that it was 83.33 RPM. So accordingly, now you're generating your frequency at that particular level. Now one more thing is that along with the frequency change, something else will happen, which is here. Your generated EMF. Let's look at this ease of understanding. So now because you reduced your omega, so your EMF generated has reduced. So one option might be that if I want to maintain my generated EMF at the same level as the rated level, then I'll have to increase the phi, okay, because omega has gone down. So if I increase the phi, then I can probably have EA same. But this is a theoretical solution. Practically, it is not really feasible because this phi usually is placed at its optimal value. There is not much margin for improvement here in terms of the rated value of the phi. So then there'll be a risk of going in the saturation zone, which we want to avoid. We don't want to saturate the core of the machine. So practically speaking, this phi is also, I mean, in this case, the phi will be operated at the rated value only. We cannot go beyond the rated. So because phi is at the rated value and omega has dropped, so what will happen is that your rated voltage will also drop. So these two, I mean, only one change basically you're doing, you're changing the RPM, but accordingly, its effect is that your voltage will also have to be derated. So instead of 13.8, this will be multiplied by a factor of 5 by 6. So 13.8 kV into 5 by 6, 83% of this will be the derating. So we can use this generator of 60 Hertz in this 50 Hertz grid. Only thing is that we'll have to change the RPM, rated RPM, at which this will run, and an effect of that changed RPM would be that the voltage rating will also have to be derated by 17% or derated to 83%. Or confusion?
Sir, actually in a practical scenario, are you doing this or not? Are we doing in
No, it
plants?
won't be needed. Usually it won't be needed because I mean this is just a hypothetical question. Usually what will happen if I have a power plant to set up in India, why will I bring a 60 Hertz generator? Rather I will get it manufactured a 50 Hertz generator only. This is just for a conceptual understanding. In extreme condition, it might be needed to be done. If something is there like no other generator is available, there is only one supplier who is giving 60 Hertz generator. I mean that type of hypothetical condition. But yeah,
then it can be done. It can be done. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question on this? Okay. So let's move ahead. So this is about the voltage, speed, and frequency ratings. This is one set of ratings which we have discussed. Another set of rating is the critical one now you can say is the power output, because basically it's a power generating machine. So let's look at the apparent power and the power factor rating and how that gets affected. So it says here there are two factors that determine the power limits of electric machines. One is the mechanical torque on the shaft of the machine, and the other is the heating of the machine's windings. So there are these two limitations for the power generated. One is that how much mechanical torque the shaft of the machine can take, and another is that because as we have been discussing that whenever there will be a power generated, there will be a current flowing through the windings. The current will cause some I square R losses, some particular ohmic losses. And these I square R losses, they appear as the heating of the windings. So these are the two limiting factors. But out of these two, in any practical synchronous motor or generator, usually the first one is not a limiting thing. The shaft is really strong enough mechanically to handle a much larger steady state power than what the machine is rated for. So the shaft torque bearing capacity is not really a limiting factor. It is just, it's well within the limit of its capacity. But the practical limit is set by the heating in the machine windings. So actually that is, what limits the power output, how much heating your particular windings of the machine can tolerate. Because if it goes beyond the limit, then the insulation might break down and the machine will catch fire and it will be destroyed. So because now there are two windings on the synchronous generator as we have been discussing, armature winding and the field winding. So each one needs to be protected from overheating. So either of these can get overheated and get destroyed. So there is so this power output and the power factor rating actually is determined by this thing. How much is the thermal capacity of the two windings? So maximum acceptable armature current sets the apparent power rating for a generator. So the armature current, how much maximum it can take, that is that determines what will be the kVA output. So this apparent power or the kVA which we saw here, 67,368 in this example, this particular power is determined by how much of amperage or the current rating of the armature winding is there, and this in turn is determined by the ability of the machine to take higher thermal load, or this winding to absorb greater thermal loading. So depending upon that, this apparent power rating is determined, and this we have looked at earlier also. This is nothing but 3 into the per phase voltage into per phase current. So rated voltage we already discussed that rated voltage is determined depending upon what is the rated flux and the speed of rotation. So V phi is already known. So IA is what is going to impact the S or the apparent power. So the maximum acceptable armature current determines the rated kilovolt amperes of the generator. And these two also we have discussed earlier also. One is in per phase quantities and another is in the line quantities. It is important to realize that for heating the armature windings, the power factor of the armature current is irrelevant. So far there is no mention of power factor. This kVA is just determined by the absolute value of the armature current. And this heating which will occur in this stator windings or the armature windings is actually given by this expression. I mean, this is obvious because IA is the per phase current, per phase armature current. RA is the resistance in each phase of the winding of the armature winding. So the stator copper loss or the copper loss in the armature winding is given by 3IA square RA. So this heating, this will appear as a heating of the winding. So this has to be well within the thermal limits of the machine and the insulation. So this is independent of the angle of the current with respect to V phi. Okay. So where does this come into picture? The power factor actually is accounted for. I mean, that limitation on power factor or the rated power factor will come through the other winding, which is the field winding. So similarly on the field also this is the DC current now, IF square, and IF square RF is the which is it's the power loss or the power loss occurring in the copper loss basically occurring in the field winding. So this one will limit the maximum allowable field current, and as you can understand that this field current will determine how much will be the flux of the machine phi, and because your generated EMF is equal to K phi omega, so this puts a particular cap on the generated voltage, and also it will put a cap on the power factor because as you discussed, I mean, as we discussed in the last class, if you recall, we looked at one phasor diagram and we saw that the relationship, the angular relationship between your voltage and the generated EMF, the terminal voltage and the armature current, that also is important. So this will be the other restriction. So based on these two limitations, based on how much thermal loading your armature winding can take, the apparent power is decided, and based upon how much thermal loading your field winding can absorb, based on that you get the EA, the generated EMF, and also the interaction of these two determines how much power factor will be the rated power factor. So this is about the power rating of the machine. Any question on this? Okay, so let's move ahead, and let's look at this. Another thing is it's known as the short time operation and the service factor. So now, as we can understand, we have discussed just now that this kVA rating and the armature, the power factor rating, both of these, they are actually limited due to the heating which is occurring in the armature windings, I square R losses, and I square R losses in the field winding. So as you can understand from basic principles of physics that heat dissipation is basically energy dissipation. So this heat dissipation will occur over some period of time, right? Because it is I square R is the power loss, but I square R into T, that is the energy which is being dissipated through heat. So when we look at the energy loss or the energy dissipation through the heating in the windings, that is basically I square R into T. So this time T is also coming into picture. So not just how much is the power rating, rather so basically what will happen is that it's not that if you, let's say, if this is rated at 67,000 kVA, suppose if I generate 68,000 or 70,000 kVA, it's not that instantaneously the machine will burn, immediately it will burn, or the winding will burn, nothing like that. Actually, every machine is designed to take some overload for some period of time. And depending upon how much is the overload, there are limitations on how much time the machine can tolerate that overload. So if let's say the overloading is only 10% of this, then probably it can tolerate for a few minutes. If let's say the overloading is 20%, 40%, then maybe it can take only 1 or 2 minutes, let's say. Or if it is 50% or 100% higher, then maybe hardly a few seconds. So this rating is actually, I mean, where what is the theoretical maximum, but practically there is some margin over this. So that particular margin, little margin which is there, that is dependent upon that how much time, for how much time the machine is exposed to that overloading. So this particular concept that a little overload can be adjusted or absorbed by the machine for some period of time, that is what is another thing we are going to discuss, and that is known as the short time operation. So usually usually the nameplate rating will have only this information as given here, but the detailed manual of the machine will also have that particular information, that how much overload this machine can absorb for how much time periods. So that is what is known as the short time operation. Okay, so now let's look at it. So the most important limit in the steady state operation of a synchronous generator is the heating of its armature and field windings. So that is, as we discussed, this is actually the practical limit which limits the power output. However, the heating limit usually occurs at a point much less than the maximum power that the generator is magnetically and mechanically able to supply. So this we have discussed earlier also, that the maximum power which it can supply is usually double or more than double of the rated power. So that margin is very much there. So mechanically it can take much more power, magnetically it can convert it to useful form, but the limitation is due to the electrical losses in the machine. So as it says here, in fact, a typical synchronous generator is often able to supply up to 300% of its rated power for a while. So that is the type of margins which are, it is designed for. And this thing, as you can understand, is because of that same thing which we discussed last class, that this power converted was having a sinusoidal relationship, 3 EAV5 by XS sine delta. So usually how the machine is designed is that delta, the internal angle or the torque angle, is kept very low. So due to that, this margin is there, that the power which it can actually generate instantaneously is much higher than the rated power. So up to double is very common, and even up to 300% it can be there. So this ability, and this is by the way a very good ability for a power system, because it provides what is known as the inertia in the power system. So if you have a particular machine, entire power grid operating, and there is some fault somewhere, or there is some excess power which is being drawn, so for few cycles, or maybe for few milliseconds or few seconds, this type of extra power can be supplied from a given machine. So that type of cushion or margin is always there. So that's why it says here that this is very useful for supplying momentary power surges during motor starting and similar load transients. So if there is a load transient, or if there is some load which is thrown off, or that type of transient behavior, this can provide a good cushion to the operation of the power system. So it is also possible to use a generator at powers exceeding the rated values for longer periods of time, as long as the windings do not have time to heat up too much before the excess load is removed. Okay, so that is the only criteria, because as we said, heating will occur I square R into T. So the time also becomes important. So this time, if the time is less such that the total heating, the heat dissipated in the winding is below its thermal capacity, then it is okay. So for example, it is given here, a generator that could supply 1 megawatt indefinitely might be able to supply 1.5 megawatt for a couple of minutes without serious harm. So like that type of thing is possible, that it can do maybe for a couple of minutes, it can go even up to take 50% overload, and progressively longer periods at lower power levels. So that is how. So there is a relationship here. So the higher the power over the rated value, the shorter the time a machine can tolerate it. That is the like the crux of this entire discussion. So the higher the power you are loading the machine over the rated value, the shorter will be the time for which the machine can tolerate this. So this is usually expressed by a particular graph which is given usually by the manufacturer of the machine. This is known as the thermal damage curve for a synchronous generator or synchronous machine. And this thermal damage curve here, if you see, this is the y-axis. This is actually a semi-log graph. So y-axis is actually a logarithmic scale, and it gives the maximum time in seconds. So this indicates how much is the maximum time the machine can tolerate a given amount of loading. And x-axis is the per unit current. So as we know, in per unit system, we basically divide whatever is the value of that particular value. Let's say we are talking about current. So the instantaneous value of current is divided by the rated value of the current. That is what is per unit system is. So basically per unit value equal to 1 is the rated value. And so here, as you can see, this is every value here indicates some amount of overloading. 1.2 means 20% overloading. 1.4 is 40% overloading. Similarly, 2 is 100% overloading, and 3 means 200% overloading. So it is like 200% extra power over and above the rated value. So this is now, so for different values of loading, how much time the machine will take before it burns up. How much time the machine can operate with a given amount of overload before the winding will burn. That is what is known as the thermal damage curve. So usually it is supplied by the manufacturer of the machine. And another thing here is that assuming that the windings were already at operational temperature when the overload is applied. So this is one intrinsic assumption here, that your winding was at the rated operational temperature when the overload was applied. So let's look at this, what is happening here. So this is the y-axis is the logarithmic scale. So as probably all of you understand, the first point here is 10 to the power 0, that means 1. And then you have 10 to the power 1 here. So it becomes 10 times in one after one major axis change. Then after the next major unit, from 10 it goes to 100, 10 to the power 2, then 10 to the power 3, 1000, and then 10 to the power 10,000. And in between, let's say this is 100 because this is 10 to the power 2 is 100 and this is 10 to the power 3000. In between also, if you see, it is a non-linear distribution because it is a logarithmic scale which we are plotting here. So this is 100, then the next one is 200, then 300, 400, 500, 600, 7, 8, 900, and then 1000. 1000 comes in. After this, the unit will be 1000 each. So next is 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000, 6000, and so on up to 10,000. So that is how we read this logarithmic scale. So if you look at this here, let's say if you talk about 20% overloading. So this is for a typical machine. It can change by by some amount for different machines. So just the typical value. So if you have 1.2, that means 20% overloading, the machine can tolerate for almost 1000 seconds. It's crossing at around 10 power 3. So 1000 seconds, that means around 16 minutes or so. So, even if 20% overloading is applied, that much overloading the machine can tolerate up to maybe around 15-16 minutes. And only then it will burn up. So within that, there is some time frame, you have some margin. So if there is, some excess power, or there is a transient, a motor is started or a big load has come up, and suddenly there is a power surge. So that power surge may be for a few cycles or maybe at max for a few seconds. So that type of overload, the machine can easily operate. There is no harm here because there is a huge margin up to 20% overloading. It can take tolerate for up to maybe 15 or 16 minutes. But if this overloading increases to 40%, in that case, if you see here, so this is 100, this is 200, this is 300, so it's around 250, so around 4 minutes. So 40% overloading for roughly around 4 minutes, and so on. It goes on decreasing. If you look at 2, that means if you are rating, if you are taking out double the power, if let's say the machine is rated at 10 kilowatt or 10 megawatt, and you are drawing out 20 megawatt, 20 kVA. When we talk about machines, generators, we should talk in kVA terms. So if it is 10 kVA rated and we are drawing 20 kVA, so how much would be the time allowed? This is 10, 20, 30, and 40, roughly around 40 seconds. It can deliver even double the power output, but only for 40 seconds. Then it will burn. And if you talk about 200% overloading, so if you are drawing 3 times the rated power, this also it can supply for roughly around 9 or 10 seconds. So this is the type of thing. So this is known as the short time operation. So usually, the higher the overloading, this limit is much more stringent. But for small overloads like 10, 20, 30% overload, it is fairly large amount of time is available. A few minutes is available for that type of thing. So usually we will not run the machine in that mode, but only thing, this ability, as it says here, as was indicated here, this type of ability can be used for absorbing some power surges. So if there is some sudden load which is coming in the system, or there is some transient which is occurring, that type of sudden load changes can be absorbed easily by the machine due to this ability of short time operation. Okay. Any questions on this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. So let's now come to the last thing which we wanted to discuss today is regarding the temperature rise. So as we looked at this thing, someone pointed out also earlier during our earlier discussion about the degree centigrade temperature rise. So how this thing is determined, how much temperature rise the machine can tolerate. This basically depends upon the insulation, what type of insulation you are using from the machine. So there are some different categories of insulations which are well defined. So as it says here, the maximum temperature rise that a machine can stand depends on the insulation class of its winding. So there are different categories or different qualities of insulation which are known as insulation classes. So there are 4 standard insulation classes: class A, class B, F and H. So class A insulation is, you can say, the weakest one, and typically, as it says here, there are some numbers associated with it. So while there is some variation in acceptable temperature depending on a machine's particular construction and the method of temperature measurement, these classes generally correspond to temperature rise of this much respectively above the ambient temperature. So class A insulation means it can tolerate up to around 60 degrees Celsius temperature rise above the ambient temperature. So if the ambient temperature is 25 degrees Celsius, it can go up to 85 degrees Celsius. Class B can tolerate up to 80 degrees Celsius temperature rise. F can tolerate up to 105, and H can tolerate up to 125 degrees Celsius. So H class insulation is typically the best one, and so if you have 25 degrees Celsius operating ambient temperature, then this H class insulation can take up to 150 degrees Celsius temperature rise. And a direct implication of this, as you can understand, is that depending upon higher the temperature rise which the insulation can take, accordingly more can be the short time operation rating of the given machine. And what happens if you are doing overheating, if your temperature is going above? So as it says here, I mean, this is the maximum which it can tolerate before the insulation will break down. So like here in this example, this is the maximum which the machine can tolerate in terms of temperature rise. So this is the breakdown. So this is basically the class A insulation machine. That's why 60 degrees Celsius. So, but even before that, I mean, breakdown is like the extreme thing. That is like final, machine, the winding actually breaks down. There is a fire which it will catch. But even before that, if you are operating within this zone also, even if you are, let's say, even if you have a class A insulation, and which has a limit of 60 degrees Celsius temperature rise, that is the limit before the breakdown. But still, even if you are not touching that 60 degree limit, but let's say if you are raising the temperature by 20 degree or by 30 degrees Celsius temperature rise, so what will happen is that the average lifetime of the winding is actually reduced. So even if it doesn't break down, so it's not that you can operate up to 50 degrees Celsius without any harmful effect, and suddenly it goes to 60, then it breaks down. Nothing like that. It's not like that. Rather, even if you're operating at 40 or 50 degrees Celsius temperature rise, there is some effect, and that is going to affect basically the lifetime of the given winding. So it's a thumb rule which says that for every 10 degrees Celsius temperature rise above the rated winding temperature, the average lifetime of a machine is cut in half. So that type of a thumb rule is there, and so that's why here it says that modern insulating materials are less susceptible to breakdown, but temperature rises still drastically shorten their lives. And for this reason, a synchronous machine should not be overloaded unless absolutely necessary. So that is only under emergency condition that overloading should be applied. And this is one graph which is usually indicating the lifetime of the winding versus the temperature rise. So this is known as the plot of mean insulation life versus winding temperature for different insulation classes. So the mean insulation life, which also in one sense indicates the winding life, is given here in thousands of hours on the y-axis, and x-axis is the total temperature rise, but in reverse direction. So as you can see, it is starting from here. So 60 degrees, 70 degree, 80 degrees Celsius like that. So this is basically the third, the second quadrant. It is not actually the first quadrant, it is like the second quadrant. So what you see here is that, so let's say, you can even always cross-check this one also, this 10 degrees centigrade rule. So suppose if you are having a class A insulation winding, and let's say its machine is operating at 80 degrees Celsius. As you can see here, the operational life of the machine expected is around 120,000 hours, 120,000 hours. But if we increase it by 10 degrees Celsius, if we operate at 90, so this drops to around 60,000 hours. So that type of deteriorating effect the overloading will have. So this is also important. So depending upon what type of insulation class we are using, there is a particular operating temperature range in which the machine should be safely operated. And finally, we come to the last thing in the rating, which we said was the service factor. So service factor is defined as the ratio of the actual maximum power of the machine to its nameplate rating. And what is the idea here is that this actually is sometimes done because, let's say, if you are having, basically how we will do is that, let's say if I want to construct a power plant, so I have identified a particular load, or a particular community or a particular area to which I want to supply the load from this power plant. So I will do some load assessment and I'll get some particular idea. Then I will do some extrapolation that, okay, how much load increase will be there over the years, and for how many years I plan to put this power plant in operation. So accordingly, I will choose upon the ratings of the machines, and I'll plan maybe for different units. So maybe I initially start with 3 units, and then as the load increases, I can add the 4th or the 5th unit or so on. So, but the idea is that there can be one problem in this, is that all this is based on the load estimation. So how much is the load and what is the load increase you see over the years. But let's say sometimes there might be some underestimation there, and the load actually might be higher. So many times what the generator manufacturers, what they also do is that they provide something known as a service factor. And this service factor basically means that they actually derate the power even below the safe operating limit. So here it says that the service factor is defined as the ratio of the actual maximum power of the machine to its nameplate rating. What it means is that, like for example, a generator with a service factor of 1.15 can actually be operated at 115% of the rated load indefinitely without harm. Okay, so 15% overload it can take for indefinite period of time. So this type of thing is practiced many times to account for some improper load estimation, or that type of thing. So basically what we are doing is that we are derating. So whatever was supposed to be the actual nameplate rating, we are derating by some amount, and then we are quoting that as the service factor, that this much extra it can absorb. Okay, so that is the service factor. As I said, the service factor is not mentioned here, but many machines will have that also listed here. So this was all in our discussion on the machine ratings. Any questions anyone is having? Please let me know.
No, sir.
Okay, so I hope it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now, okay.
Sir, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah,
why
there
they
is
are
some
not
question.
using? Sir, why they are not using any coolant in?
Who is speaking? I couldn't really identify.
Sir, Anvesh, sir.
Anvesh. Okay,
Sir, why they are not using any coolant, sir, in place of insulator?
No, coolant is always there. This insulation is there and coolant is also there. So that thing, I mean, this is, see, this has been the temperature rating and all has been mentioned here, taking into account the coolant thing. So usually you will have air cooled windings, or even water cooled windings also are there. So that coolant and all is definitely there. I mean, maybe if this time you are not here, if suppose let's say next semester you are here, maybe we can plan a visit to one of the nearby hydropower plants, and you can also see, I mean, recently I visited this one power plant here nearby, and luckily that time that power plant was under maintenance, so I could also see the type of cooling arrangement they have got. So one of the windings, I mean the stator winding was basically air cooled, and for the other one they were actually using water cooling type of circulator thing. So actually coolant is there. I mean, this is not mentioned here. These ratings are after taking into account those type of heating and the coolant arrangement.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this completes the first section of this course, which was on the synchronous generator basics and the analytical equations and operation of a synchronous generator. So next class we will have some sample problems, some tutorial to solve. I will be uploading this particular class notes also in Microsoft Teams. So I would advise you can just go through this today, so that in tomorrow's class we will be practicing questions and numerical problems. So it would be helpful if you have revised this thing. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay, then we'll stop here.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.